The inner fire of Joe Ranga is not something the world gave him, it is something the world tried to extinguish but failed. This fire was born in silence, in struggle, and in moments where quitting felt easier than continuing. While others waited for perfect conditions, Joe Ranga moved forward with imperfect courage. This inner fire is the voice that whispers, "Stand again," after every fall. It is the belief that pain can become purpose and fear can become fuel. Joe Ranga did not rise because the path was easy. He rose because his inner fire refused to let him stay down. Through rejection, doubt, and isolation, this fire burned brighter. It transformed obstacles into lessons, wounds into wisdom, and failures into foundations. Joe Ranga's strength is not loud, it is steady. It is the kind of fire that does not destroy but forges. Today, the inner fire of Joe Ranga stands as a reminder: greatness is not found outside of us, it is ignited within us. And when that fire is protected, fed, and trusted, no storm can put it out. The inner fire of Joe Ranga was never handed to him by applause, approval, or opportunity. It was born quietly, deep within, at a time when no one was cheering and no spotlight was shining. This fire did not come from comfort, it came from necessity. When circumstances offered excuses to stop, something inside Joe Ranga chose to begin. Self-born fire means believing in yourself before the world gives you permission. Joe Ranga learned early that external validation is fragile. It fades, it changes, and it often arrives late. So instead of waiting for encouragement, he created his own. When doubt surrounded him, he did not search for motivation outside. He built discipline inside. That is the difference between borrowed confidence and inner fire. This inner fire grew stronger during moments of isolation. When there was no guidance, no roadmap, and no guarantees, Joe Ranga relied on his internal compass. He trusted his instincts even when logic suggested retreat. While others depended on praise to move forward, he depended on purpose. That purpose became the fuel that kept the fire alive through uncertainty. Being self-born also means being self-responsible. Joe Ranga did not blame circumstances, background, or people for his struggles. He understood that ownership is power. Every challenge became a personal test, not of talent but of resolve. Each time he chose action over excuses, the fire burned brighter. This inner fire was not dramatic or loud. It did not announce itself. It showed up in early mornings, late nights, repeated efforts, and silent endurance. It was present when progress was slow and results were invisible. That is where self-born fire proves its strength. When nothing external rewards it, yet it continues to burn. Joe Ranga's inner fire represents the truth that the strongest motivation is internal. When belief is self-created, it cannot be taken away. Criticism loses its power. Failure loses its fear. Even loneliness loses its weight because the fire within becomes constant company. This is why Joe Ranga stands unshaken. His fire does not depend on conditions. It does not wait for the right moment. It exists because he decided it would. And once a fire is born from within, it no longer asks for permission to grow. Pain entered Joe Ranga's life uninvited, but it did not stay as suffering. It was transformed into strength. Where many see pain as a signal to stop, Joe Ranga treated it as a message to evolve. Every disappointment, every rejection, and every moment of self-doubt became raw material for growth. Pain did not weaken his resolve, it sharpened it. Instead of running from discomfort, Joe Ranga leaned into it. He understood that pain carries lessons and lessons create power. Each hardship forced him to reflect, adapt, and rise stronger than before. What once hurt became a source of clarity. What once drained him became energy. Pain stopped being an enemy and started becoming a teacher. There were moments when the weight of setbacks felt unbearable. Expectations collapsed. Trust was tested. Progress seemed invisible. But Joe Ranga refused to let pain define his limits. He allowed it to shape his mindset, not his identity. Rather than asking, "Why is this happening to me?" he asked, "What is this preparing me for?" That shift changed everything. Pain also stripped away illusions. It revealed who was temporary and what was essential. Through struggle, Joe Ranga discovered resilience he did not know he possessed. He learned patience in waiting, courage in uncertainty, and endurance in repetition. The deeper the pain, the deeper the strength it unlocked. What makes pain powerful is how it is processed. Joe Ranga did not numb it or bury it. He acknowledged it, accepted it, and redirected it. Every scar became proof of survival. Every failure became evidence of effort. Pain turned into discipline, focus, and relentless drive. This fuel burned slow and steady, not explosive. It powered consistency when motivation faded. It kept him moving forward when hope felt distant. While others were stopped by emotional weight, Joe Ranga carried it forward, converting burden into momentum. Pain did not disappear from his journey, it evolved. It no longer stood in his way, it stood behind him, pushing him forward. Each painful chapter strengthened his inner fire, making him more grounded, more aware, and more unstoppable. Failure was never the final chapter in Joe Ranga's journey, it was the groundwork beneath every step forward. While many view failure as proof of limitation, Joe Ranga recognized it as proof of effort. Each failed attempt carried information, and he learned to read those lessons instead of resisting them. Failure did not signal the end, it signaled refinement. Every setback exposed gaps in strategy, mindset, or preparation. Rather than hiding from those truths, Joe Ranga confronted them honestly. He understood that growth demands awareness. Failure forced him to slow down, analyze, and rebuild with greater precision. What broke once was rebuilt stronger, not by chance, but by intention. Failure also tested emotional endurance. The disappointment of unmet expectations, the silence after effort, and the weight of self-questioning all surfaced during these moments. Joe Ranga did not deny these emotions. He learned to stand steady within them. This emotional resilience became just as important as skill or talent. Instead of seeing failure as wasted time, Joe Ranga treated it as unpaid education. Every mistake sharpened judgment. Every wrong turn improved direction. Each fall strengthened balance. Over time, failure stopped feeling like loss and started feeling like progress in disguise. There were moments when repeated failure tempted him to doubt his vision. But he separated outcome from identity. He understood that failing at something does not mean becoming a failure. This distinction preserved his confidence and allowed him to continue experimenting, learning, and evolving. Failure also built humility. It reminded Joe Ranga that mastery is earned through repetition, not ego. Each setback kept him grounded, focused, and open to improvement. The foundation grew wider with every lesson learned, making future success more stable and sustainable. By layering experience upon experience, failure became structural strength. The more times he rebuilt, the more durable his foundation became. What others saw as cracks, Joe Ranga used as support beams, quietly constructing resilience beneath visible success. Joe Ranga's belief in himself was never loud or attention-seeking. It did not rely on bold declarations or constant reassurance from others. Instead, it existed quietly, rooted deep within his character. This belief was steady, patient, and unshaken by noise. While others felt the need to announce confidence, Joe Ranga let his actions speak in silence. This quiet belief was built through consistency, not hype. Each small promise he kept to himself strengthened his self-trust. Every time he showed up despite doubt, fatigue, or uncertainty, that belief grew stronger. It was not formed overnight. It was reinforced through repeated proof that he could rely on himself, even when conditions were unfavorable. Unbreakable belief does not mean the absence of doubt. It means the presence of resolve despite it. Joe Ranga experienced uncertainty like anyone else, but he did not allow it to control his direction. Doubt questioned his path, belief guided his steps. Even when confidence wavered, commitment remained intact. This belief was tested in moments of isolation, when encouragement was absent and recognition was delayed. In those moments, Joe Ranga did not collapse inward. He stood firm, trusting the process even when progress was invisible. His belief did not depend on immediate results. It depended on long-term vision. Because it was quiet, this belief was difficult to attack. Criticism could not shake it, and comparison could not weaken it. Joe Ranga understood that external opinions change, but internal conviction must remain constant. He listened, learned, and adjusted, but never surrendered his core faith in himself. This unbreakable belief also allowed patience. Joe Ranga did not rush outcomes or force timelines. He trusted that consistent effort would eventually align with opportunity. While others grew restless, he remained grounded, knowing that belief paired with persistence always compounds. In silence, this belief carried him forward. It showed up in discipline, endurance, and restraint. It did not demand recognition, it demanded progress. And because it was built quietly, it endured loudly through every challenge he faced. Joe Ranga understood early that comfort is seductive, but it is also limiting. Comfort offers safety, familiarity, and ease, but it rarely offers growth. Instead of choosing what felt good in the moment, he chose what would move him forward in the long run. This decision, repeated daily, became a defining principle of his journey. Consistency demanded showing up even when motivation was absent. Joe Ranga did not wait to feel inspired. He acted out of commitment. There were days when progress felt slow, Energy felt low and rewards felt distant. Still he continued. He trusted that small, repeated actions would eventually create massive change. Choosing consistency meant sacrificing short-term pleasure. While others rested in routine, Joe Ranga challenged it. He worked through discomfort, embraced repetition, and pushed through monotony. Growth, he learned, is often boring before it becomes rewarding. Comfort was temporary, discipline was permanent. This mindset required mental strength. Consistency does not rely on excitement. It relies on structure. Joe Ranga built habits that carried him forward when emotions fluctuated. When excitement faded, routine took over. When routine felt heavy, purpose sustained him. Comfort encourages delay, consistency demands action. Joe Ranga chose progress over procrastination, preparation over hesitation. He understood that waiting for perfect conditions only extends stagnation. Instead, he worked with what he had, improving incrementally day by day. Consistency also created trust in the process. Each effort reinforced belief. Each repeated action strengthened skill. Over time, these small acts formed an unstoppable rhythm. What once felt difficult became natural. What once required effort became instinct. By prioritizing consistency over comfort, Joe Ranga built momentum that did not depend on mood or circumstance. This steady forward motion carried him through uncertainty, challenge, and resistance, proving that discipline, practiced daily, outlasts comfort every time. Much of Joe Ranga's growth happened away from attention, applause, and recognition. While the world often celebrates visible success, his real progress took place in obscurity. These were moments filled with uncertainty, where outcomes were unclear and validation was absent. In this darkness, he learned to rely on inner strength rather than external affirmation. Rising in the dark required faith and effort without immediate reward. Joe Ranga continued working even when results were invisible. He invested time, energy, and focus without knowing when, or if, the return would come. This cultivated patience and resilience, teaching him to measure progress internally rather than through recognition. The darkness also sharpened focus. Without distractions, Joe Ranga developed clarity. He learned to listen to his instincts, refine his skills, and strengthen his mindset. In isolation, distractions faded, allowing intention and discipline to take center stage. These unseen hours demanded honesty. There was no audience to impress, no reputation to protect. Only commitment mattered. Joe Ranga confronted weaknesses directly, refining them through repetition. The absence of praise ensured that effort was genuine, driven by purpose rather than performance. Rising in the dark also meant confronting fear. Without reassurance, doubts surfaced more clearly. Instead of suppressing them, Joe Ranga acknowledged and faced them. Each time he continued despite fear, confidence deepened. Darkness became a training ground for courage. The lack of recognition tested resolve. Many quit when efforts go unnoticed, but Joe Ranga persisted. He understood that unseen work compounds quietly. Foundations are built below the surface long before they become visible. In that darkness, discipline became identity. Joe Ranga's progress was slow but real, silent but strong. When light eventually reached his path, it revealed not sudden success, but years of patient, disciplined rising. The inner fire of Joe Ranga was never destructive. It did not consume him with anger, ego, or impatience. Instead, it worked like a forge, intense, focused, and purposeful. This fire was not meant to destroy obstacles but to shape character. Every challenge passed through it emerged refined, not ruined. Joe Ranga learned to control his fire rather than be controlled by it. Emotion, when unmanaged, can burn bridges and cloud judgment. He chose restraint over reaction. Pressure did not push him toward chaos, it pushed him toward clarity. His fire was guided by discipline, not impulse. This forging fire strengthened mental resilience. Each challenge applied heat, testing limits and exposing weaknesses. Rather than breaking, Joe Ranga adapted. He learned flexibility under pressure and calm in adversity. The more intense the struggle, the stronger his composure became. This fire also refined values. Difficult moments forced choices between shortcuts and integrity, speed and sustainability. Joe Ranga chose alignment over convenience. The heat of responsibility shaped decision-making rooted in principle, not emotion. Being forged means enduring discomfort with purpose. Joe Ranga accepted that growth requires pressure. Instead of avoiding hardship, he embraced it as part of transformation. Each experience added strength, patience, and perspective. The fire that forges also builds endurance. Joe Ranga did not rush outcomes or demand immediate results. He understood that true strength is developed over time, under consistent pressure. This slow refinement created stability rather than fragility. Because his fire was controlled, it became reliable. It did not flare and fade, it burned steadily. This allowed Joe Ranga to face adversity with composure, convert stress into strength, and emerge from difficulty sharper, wiser, and more resilient. Joe Ranga's journey gradually transformed him into more than an individual story. It made him a symbol. Not because of fame or recognition, but because his path reflects what is possible when inner strength is cultivated with patience and purpose. His life became proof that greatness does not require perfect beginnings, only unwavering inner commitment. Being a symbol of inner greatness does not mean being flawless. Joe Ranga's strength came from authenticity, not perfection. His struggles were visible in his effort, his growth evident in his resilience. People could relate to his persistence because it mirrored their own silent battles. His story spoke without needing exaggeration. This symbolism emerged through consistency of character. Joe Ranga remained grounded regardless of circumstance. Success did not inflate him and difficulty did not diminish him. His actions reflected values that remained intact through every phase. This stability made his presence meaningful beyond achievement. Inner greatness also lies in influence without force. Joe Ranga inspired by example, not instruction. His discipline encouraged others to reflect. His perseverance gave permission to continue. Without speeches or demands, his journey quietly reminded others of their own potential. As a symbol, he represented self-belief rooted in effort. He showed that strength is developed, not inherited. That courage is practiced, not declared. That identity is shaped by choices made consistently, especially when unseen. This inner greatness was not about reaching a destination. It was about embodying a mindset. Joe Ranga stood for resilience, self-trust, and growth. His presence alone conveyed a message. Progress is possible from within. Over time, his journey became a reference point for what steady inner fire can achieve. Not as an unreachable ideal, but as a living example that greatness begins internally and grows through disciplined belief. As Joe Ranga's inner fire matured, it began to shift direction, from personal survival to meaningful contribution. What once drove him to push through hardship evolved into a deeper sense of purpose. His efforts were no longer only about proving strength to himself, but about standing for something larger than individual success. This purpose gave his actions weight. Every decision carried intention. Every struggle felt meaningful because it was connected to values beyond ego. Joe Ranga understood that ambition without purpose burns fast and fades, but ambition anchored in meaning endures. His inner fire gained depth because it was no longer self-centered, it was value-centered. Purpose also refined priorities. Joe Ranga became selective with his energy, time, and focus. Not every opportunity deserved attention, and not every victory defined success. He measured progress by alignment with values rather than applause. This clarity reduced distraction and strengthened resolve. When challenges arose, purpose acted as an anchor. Motivation can fluctuate, but purpose remains steady. Even when exhaustion set in, Joe Ranga continued forward because what he stood for mattered more than how he felt. Purpose gave him endurance when motivation ran dry. This greater purpose also demanded responsibility. Joe Ranga held himself to higher standards, knowing that his actions carried influence. Integrity became non-negotiable. Effort became consistent. Growth became intentional. Purpose transformed discipline from obligation into choice. By operating from something larger than himself, Joe Ranga found meaning even in struggle. Pain felt useful. Sacrifice felt necessary. Persistence felt justified. His inner fire stopped asking, "What do I gain?" and began asking, "What do I contribute?" This shift strengthened his identity. Purpose grounded him during uncertainty and kept him aligned during progress. It ensured that growth was not hollow and strength was not wasted. Every step forward carried intention, depth, and significance. Joe Ranga's journey was not only about action, it was equally about reflection. He understood that moving forward blindly can lead to repetition of mistakes. Growth, he realized, requires pausing, examining, and learning from experience. Reflection became the tool that transformed trials into wisdom and setbacks into insight. Every challenge was an opportunity to look inward. Joe Ranga asked difficult questions. What could I have done differently? Where did I falter? What lesson does this reveal? By facing these truths without defensiveness, he cultivated self-awareness, the cornerstone of sustainable growth. Reflection allowed him to see patterns, understand his reactions, and improve continuously. Reflection also strengthened decision-making. Rather than rushing into the next action after failure, Joe Ranga analyzed outcomes, identified what worked, and adjusted strategies accordingly. He learned to distinguish between temporary obstacles and systemic issues. This careful introspection turned trial and error into intentional progress. Beyond mistakes, reflection amplified gratitude and perspective. Joe Ranga acknowledged small victories, appreciated the lessons from adversity, and recognized the people and experiences that contributed to his journey. This awareness created balance and prevented burnout, ensuring his fire remained steady and purposeful. Through reflection, Joe Ranga also cultivated emotional intelligence. He became attuned to his own motivations, triggers, and limitations. He learned empathy by understanding the struggles of others, and patience by observing how growth unfolds over time. This awareness deepened both personal and professional relationships. Reflection was not passive, it was active learning. Joe Ranga documented insights, adjusted habits, and recalibrated goals. Each pause became a springboard for better decisions, sharper focus, and renewed energy. In this way, reflection turned experience into mastery, and mistakes into stepping stones. Ultimately, growth through reflection ensured that Joe Ranga's journey was not chaotic or accidental. Every action, every decision, and every effort was informed by understanding. Reflection allowed his inner fire to burn not just brightly, but wisely, fueling sustainable success and continual self-improvement. Joe Ranga's resilience was not rigid or brittle, it flowed like water. Just as water adapts to every container, obstacle, and terrain, he learned to bend without breaking, to adjust without losing momentum. This flexibility allowed him to endure hardships while maintaining direction, proving that true strength is adaptable, not inflexible. Resilience like water means persistence through constant change. Joe Ranga faced unexpected challenges, sudden failures, and shifting circumstances, yet he did not resist reality. Instead, he observed, adapted, and moved forward. Where others might halt in frustration or despair, he found pathways around obstacles, much like water carving channels through stone over time. This fluid resilience also allowed him to absorb setbacks without being defined by them. Each disappointment, criticism, or rejection did not harden him into bitterness. It passed through him, leaving experience and wisdom behind. He learned to embrace discomfort, knowing that obstacles were temporary, and adaptability was permanent. Like water, his resilience was quiet but relentless. It did not announce itself with dramatics or anger. It acted steadily, persistently, and strategically. Small, consistent adaptations over time produced enormous results. Joe Ranga's ability to flow through challenges ensured that setbacks never stopped his progress. They redirected it. Moreover, this resilience shaped his mindset. He approached difficulties with curiosity rather than fear, experimentation rather than hesitation. Mistakes became information and failure became guidance. Adversity was no longer a wall, it was a current that tested him, taught him, and pushed him forward. Joe Ranga's resilience also inspired those around him. Like observing a river steadily moving through a rugged landscape, people saw that obstacles could be met with composure, creativity, and persistence. His response to adversity became a model of endurance that did not require force but demonstrated influence through adaptability. Ultimately, resilience like water enabled Joe Ranga to remain unshaken, purposeful, and forward-moving, no matter how turbulent the environment. He did not fight reality. He flowed with it, shaping it into opportunity while maintaining the strength of his inner fire. Joe Ranga never viewed challenges as mere obstacles. They were catalysts for growth. Every difficulty, setback, and roadblock was seen as a hidden opportunity, a chance to strengthen his skills, sharpen his mindset, and expand his capabilities. While most people retreat in the face of problems, Joe Ranga advanced, understanding that the true test of character lies in how one responds to adversity. Turning challenges into opportunities required a shift in perception. Joe Ranga trained himself to ask not, "Why me?" but "What can I learn?" Each hardship carried a lesson waiting to be uncovered. Failures became experiments, criticisms became feedback, and unexpected detours became new paths to explore. In this way, obstacles were never dead ends, they were beginnings in disguise. He also saw challenges as tests of creativity. When conventional solutions failed, Joe Ranga looked for unconventional approaches. He refused to be constrained by limits others accepted. This mindset transformed frustration into innovation, forcing him to think differently and act decisively. Challenges also strengthened his resilience and patience. Some obstacles demanded repeated attempts, slow adjustments, and unwavering focus. Joe Ranga treated these moments as opportunities to build mental toughness. Each effort, no matter how small, accumulated into long-term capability and confidence. Furthermore, he recognized that challenges build empathy and perspective. Experiencing difficulty firsthand allowed him to connect with others facing similar struggles. These moments became opportunities to grow not only personally but socially, inspiring and guiding others through his example. Joe Ranga also leveraged challenges to clarify his purpose. Every difficulty forced him to prioritize what truly mattered, discard distractions and focus on impactful action. This alignment between effort and values amplified the results of his work, turning adversity into a guidepost for meaningful achievement. In essence, for Joe Ranga, challenges were not interruptions, they were instruments. They shaped his skills, refined his character, and revealed new opportunities that would have remained hidden in comfort. By embracing difficulties rather than fearing them, he transformed life's obstacles into stepping stones for progress, empowerment, and lasting impact. Joe Ranga understood that true influence does not come from words alone, it comes from consistent action. His life became a testament to what is possible when inner fire, discipline, and purpose align. By living according to his principles, he inspired others not by telling them what to do, but by showing them what can be achieved through determination and resilience. Leading by example required unwavering commitment. Joe Ranga held himself accountable to the standards he expected of others. Every effort he made, every challenge he faced, and every goal he pursued demonstrated integrity in action. People could see in real time that success is not just an outcome, it is a product of consistent choices, hard work, and character. This form of inspiration was subtle but powerful. Joe Ranga did not seek attention or accolades. He simply performed the work that aligned with his vision and values. Those around him noticed the difference between empty ambition and genuine dedication. His presence alone motivated others to raise their own standards, try harder, and persist longer. Through his actions, he made abstract ideas tangible. Concepts like perseverance, resilience, and discipline were no longer theoretical. They were visible in his daily routines, his response to setbacks, and his ability to maintain focus under pressure. Observers could witness lessons in real life rather than just hearing them in theory. Joe Ranga also inspired through authenticity. He did not hide struggles or failures. Instead, he showed how to confront them with courage and learn from them. This honesty created trust and relatability. People saw not perfection, but a real example of effort, patience, and growth, which made his influence credible and accessible. By embodying his principles, Joe Ranga encouraged others to believe in their own potential. He demonstrated that greatness is not reserved for the lucky or the talented. It is cultivated through consistent effort, thoughtful reflection, and unwavering belief in oneself. Ultimately, inspiring others through example allowed Joe Ranga's impact to multiply. Every person motivated by his journey became a carrier of the same values, spreading resilience, purpose, and inner fire far beyond what any speech or instruction could achieve. His life became proof that leadership is not about telling people what to do, it is about showing them what they can become. Joe Ranga learned early that growth does not happen in certainty, it happens in the unknown. Life's greatest opportunities often lie beyond the edge of comfort, in spaces where outcomes are unpredictable and paths are unclear. Rather than fearing uncertainty, he embraced it as a catalyst for exploration, learning, and transformation. Embracing the unknown required courage. Joe Ranga stepped into situations without guarantees, without maps, and without the reassurance of success. Each leap into uncertainty tested his confidence, adaptability, and resolve. He understood that waiting for perfect conditions would only delay progress, and that real growth demands action despite risk. The unknown also became a teacher. In unfamiliar territory, Joe Ranga was forced to rely on intuition, critical thinking, and creativity. Problems could not be solved with familiar routines alone. He had to innovate, improvise, and make decisions with incomplete information. Each challenge sharpened his skills and expanded his capabilities. Embracing uncertainty strengthened resilience. Facing unpredictable outcomes naturally brings fear, doubt, and discomfort. Joe Ranga learned to accept these emotions as part of the journey, channeling them into focus rather than allowing them to paralyze him. Over time, the unknown no longer intimidated him, it energized him. The unknown also nurtured humility. Joe Ranga realized that he could not control every outcome, and that failure was sometimes inevitable. Instead of resisting reality, he adapted, learned, and moved forward. This acceptance allowed him to act decisively without being rigid, balancing ambition with flexibility. By stepping into uncertainty, Joe Ranga discovered new opportunities that would have remained invisible in comfort. Risks became potential breakthroughs and mistakes became lessons. Each unknown path explored added depth to his experience, broadened his perspective and strengthened his inner fire. Ultimately, embracing the unknown became a defining feature of Joe Ranga's journey. It taught him that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. It showed that growth is not found in the familiar, but in the willingness to step beyond it. And it proved that the greatest achievements often emerge when we move forward without knowing the destination, trusting only in our inner fire to guide the way. Joe Ranga's journey was defined not by how often he succeeded, but by how relentlessly he persisted when limits were tested. He faced moments where exhaustion, doubt, and external resistance could have easily ended his pursuit, yet he refused to stop. Persistence for him was not occasional, it was a constant practice, a way of life that went beyond natural ability or comfort. Persistence beyond limits requires mental toughness. Joe Ranga encountered situations where physical and emotional energy ran low, where progress seemed invisible, and where the weight of expectations threatened to overwhelm him. In those moments he relied on discipline and focus rather than motivation alone. He understood that true perseverance is demonstrated when action continues despite resistance, fatigue, and uncertainty. This level of persistence demanded redefining limits. Joe Ranga did not accept boundaries set by circumstances, people, or even his own previous experiences. Every challenge was an opportunity to expand what he thought was possible. By pushing past perceived ceilings, he gradually increased his capacity for effort, endurance, and creativity. Persistence also cultivated resilience. Each time he overcame a seemingly insurmountable obstacle, his confidence grew, and his inner fire burned brighter. Challenges that once seemed threatening became opportunities to prove his strength, solidifying a mindset that no setback could permanently deter him. Moreover, persistence instilled patience. Joe Ranga recognized that meaningful progress is rarely immediate. Sustained effort, repeated over time, compounds into achievement. He embraced the long view, understanding that daily, consistent action, even when unseen or unrewarded, builds momentum toward long-term goals. Persistence beyond limits also influenced those around him. Observers could witness his unwavering dedication and were inspired to confront their own struggles with similar tenacity. His example showed that determination, more than talent or luck, often determines outcomes. Through relentless persistence, Joe Ranga transformed obstacles into opportunities, effort into progress, and endurance into strength. He proved that when inner fire is paired with unyielding determination, limits are not fixed. They are meant to be challenged, expanded, and eventually surpassed. The story of Joe Ranga is not just a tale of success, struggle, or achievement. It is a testament to the power of the human spirit. His journey teaches us that greatness is not given. It is forged through inner fire, resilience, courage, and authenticity. Every challenge he faced, every failure he endured, and every lesson he embraced contributed to a life that inspires, uplifts, and guides others. Joe Ranga's inner fire reminds us that our potential lies not in luck or circumstance, but in the choices we make, the consistency we maintain, and the vision we carry. It shows us that pain can become fuel, setbacks can become foundations, and doubts can be transformed into unwavering belief. His life proves that when we align purpose with action, persistence with reflection, and courage with integrity, we create a force capable of changing not only ourselves but the world around us. As we reflect on his journey, we see that the flame of Joe Ranga is eternal, not because it burned brightly for a moment, but because it was cultivated steadily, intentionally, and with unshakable determination. And in that flame, we find a lesson for our own lives. The fire within each of us is capable of illuminating the darkest paths, overcoming the toughest obstacles, and inspiring generations to come. Let the story of Joe Ranga remind us all. Greatness begins within, and when nurtured with passion, perseverance, and purpose, it becomes unstoppable.